do it.
Yeah.
Just go. Drop your inhibitions and your preconceived notions at the gate. Come in just open to experiencing and fully experience it. Allow yourself to fully experience it. Don't think, people are going to think I'm acting like a kid. Act like a kid.
Yeah.
Enjoy yourself. You know what? If you want to eat the chocolate-covered strawberries, eat the chocolate-covered strawberries.
Bienvenue. Welcome to Coffee Talk with King Francois I, where we will discover the tales, trials, and talents of Renaissance Festival performers, merchants, and die-hard attendees as we journey by way of lighthearted and even at times heartwarming conversations about the Renaissance Festival world. I am your host, Theodore Jander, aka King Francois I. Bonjour. Welcome to Coffee Talk with King Francois I, episode 22. I am your host, Theodore Jander. In this Coffee Talk, you will share in my conversation with Amy Maxwell and Robert Palmer, two of the most delightful patrons I have met and know. It was a true delight chatting with this couple and learning more about their passion for Ren Faires. A side note, today's show features a hilarious story with some non-explicit adult content. If you have children nearby, you might want to use headphones. As we have done in a few previous episodes before jumping into our conversation, a little coffee humor to start things brewing. What is the difference between coffee and your opinion? I asked for a coffee. With that bit of hot in your mug humor, grab a cup of your favorite brew, sit back, and enjoy this episode of Coffee Talk with King Francois I. It is my pleasure to welcome Amy Maxwell and Robert Palmer to Coffee Talk with King Francois I. Well met to both you, Amy and Bob.
Hello.
As this is Coffee Talk with King Francois I, and coffee being a part of the podcast, I do like to start off with a few questions about coffee before we move into our conversation about all things Renaissance Festival. So to begin, if you are a coffee drinker, how do you take your coffee, and do you have a favorite roast? So whichever one of you wants to answer first.
I'm the only coffee drinker.
Yeah. Okay.
I take my coffee black, about as strong as possible, but I do like a medium or a blonde roast.
Perfect. My understanding is that with the lighter roasts, you have more caffeine.
Yes.
Darker roasts, obviously not as much. So, but yeah, having that little caffeine.
I even get an extra caffeinated coffee that I drink at home called Death Wish coffee. So
I was interviewing Josh Jennings from Pirates Inc. earlier, and he mentioned that was something that he regularly consumed and no longer does.
They have a blueberry coffee that is amazing, and I probably bought 5 pounds of it just so if they ever discontinue it, I'll have more.
That's always one of those things, like you come to find like some places that have, whether it's coffee or any kind of food or whatever that you like really like, and then all of a sudden it's discontinued or like, no. Yeah.
One cup is me through the entire day at school. So
there you go. And we know the need for that energy because the energy of children is just amazing. Bob, since you're not a coffee drinker, do you drink tea, or are you just not really into like the hot beverages much?
Hot chocolate, tea.
Oh, there you go.
Soda, yeah.
It's like Earl Grey.
Yeah, I do. If I drink tea, it would be Earl Grey.
Okay, nice, perfect. So tell myself and listeners about your favorite coffee shop, where it's located, what makes it your favorite coffee shop, and what do you like about it? Or do you even really have one?
I don't really have a favorite coffee shop. I was joking. My favorite coffee shop is Quick Trip because because I can doctor my coffee the way I want it.
There you go.
Just about everywhere.
Right? Yes. Yeah. Coffee 24/7 if you need it.
Seating's a little iffy, but yeah.
Yeah. But honestly, I think a lot of those major gas station, it's not even so much gas station, it's
Convenience store.
convenience store, and that they've really, like Quick Trip or QT, attempting to really beef up their food as well as their coffee, because they do have some pretty good coffee. I myself have stopped in and
catered to the crowd that likes to taste the coffee, not just get it into their veins as quickly as possible.
Oh, right. Yeah. Nice. I like that description. If you could have coffee or Earl Grey tea with any historical figure, who would you choose and why?
Can you go first?
I guess I would do. I would like to sit down and have a cup of something hot with Ronald Reagan. I just think it would be interesting to talk to him about what was going on
during his presidency
during his presidency. Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
For me, it would be Katharine Hepburn. I'd really like to pick her mind and have her give advice. She was a woman that lived by her own rules. She had absolutely no F's to give to her haters. And I mean, she just lived her life. And I would love to pick up anything from her that could help me live that way too.
Nice. And what better way to do it than over some Death Wish coffee? You know?
Like, oh, that's some good coffee.
Yeah.
You old poop.
So to lead us into from more coffee talk into Renaissance talk, what is your favorite Renaissance word?
We actually have the same word, and it is verily.
Did you say verily or
verily? Yes.
Verily. Nice.
Verily.
Okay.
It's so Renaissance-y.
Yeah.
It kind of classes up just about anything you say.
Right. Yeah. And it's still a legitimate word. It's not like it's not used, but it's not used very often.
Yeah.
Outside of our circle.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yes. You go to Renaissance festivals, it's highly likely that you will hear that word.
Yeah.
Verily I say unto you. Yeah. So speaking of Renaissance festivals, tell me and my listeners the story about how you fell in love with Renaissance festivals.
It's a favorite story.
Yes.
Outstanding.
Bob and I actually were lucky to have fallen in love with Renaissance festivals pretty much almost at the same time. For me, it was love at first sight. He needed a little more wooing.
I really wanted to go. I wasn't on board with wearing a scarf.
Okay.
But I got used to it.
The first time we went was going on 30 years ago now. We had gone out to see my grandmother in Kansas City just to visit her for a long weekend. And one day she wasn't feeling really well and kind of felt bad about not really entertaining us. So she says, there's this thing in Bonner Springs you might be interested in. And I think she had a coupon from the Kansas City Star or something like that. And so we're like, oh, okay, what the heck, we'll go. And so we drive out to Bonner Springs with this coupon, grab ourselves some tickets, and we probably got there around 1 in the afternoon. It was not first thing. Walk through the gates. We'd never even heard of a Renaissance fair before. I mean, never even heard of them. Walk through the gates. Our jaws hit the ground. We dragged them around maybe a quarter of the fair. We were there about 4 hours. Just
I know that feeling.
Oh yeah,
Didn't get around very much.
I think we made it through one small loop and just amazed. And by the time we were leaving, I was like, we're coming back next year. I know I'm going to make guard, and we're going to dress up, and we're doing this and we're doing that. And Bob's like, okay. And from there on, we were hooked. And we've gone to Kansas City every year since then. Every year it was open. We've gone at least one weekend, even if it meant
at least one day.
Well, yeah. I mean, even if it meant driving up on Friday night and then driving back Sunday, we get there, we at least get one day. So other than the year it wasn't open, it is an unbroken tradition for us.
Outstanding. And how many other Renaissance festivals have you then gone to?
Let's see, we've been to between St. Louis, Kansas City, Wichita, Scarborough, Bristol, Colorado. I think that's it. So about 6.
Yeah.
Have you done CMRF?
Oh, yeah. Central Missouri. Yeah.
And there's been a couple little ones in between. There was one in Forest Park
at one point that may have been the St. Louis early days.
I know the Shakespeare in the Park started right around the same time as the St. Louis Renaissance Festival started. I've heard of one, I think back in the 80s, that took place somewhere in Creve Coeur. The St. Louis Renaissance Festival, its first year was 1999, and that was out in Wentzville.
Okay.
We had 1 year, we had done a couple of promos, so it's very possible that maybe there was some promotional event that they were doing out at out at Forest Park.
Or it was on a college campus,
I can picture it, but I don't know what it was. It was
tents in a field.
Yeah, some tents in a field, people singing. It was in Columbia at the fairgrounds.
The first time Columbia Renaissance Festival tried to do a festival, they had it at the fairgrounds in Columbia, the county fairgrounds.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And it was a dry festival. It was probably about 6 or 7 tents. It was very small.
Ooh, that is tiny.
Yes, it was.
It was kind of fun.
Yeah, it was all right.
Yeah. I know they had one in Jeff City too, that the cast from, I think, both the Kansas City Renaissance Festival and the St. Louis Renaissance Festival had participated in for a couple of years. I think it was just a one-day Renaissance Festival, like the 3rd or 4th weekend in June. And it's been, oh my goodness, it's probably been 14, 15 years at least since they've, I think, even done it.
Never got a chance to see that one.
Continuing with the whole Renaissance Festival, attending, falling in love, and like you described, walking through those gates. And that's the exact same reaction that I had when I first, because Kansas City was the first Renaissance Festival I had been to. And I went as part of the chamber singers at Missouri State because the group performed there. It was this gorgeous autumn Sunday morning, driving in, and just the fires or anything, that the smoke and from any of the cooking and the blacksmiths and all of that. I just sort of walked through there, and it's just like I have walked back 500 years. Yeah.
This is awesome.
Yeah. So has attending Renaissance festivals benefited your job outside of the Renaissance Festival world at all?
Not yet. Now, as a teacher, I have a feeling it probably will. I'll probably pull a lot of things from my fair belt for teaching. But prior to that, not really, other than it was a nice little icebreaker. There's 3 truths and a lie, things that you have to do for meetings. Where I could tell them I'm well known as a barrier. So I'm like,
right, yeah. Okay.
Person and people know me by.
So what then is one unexpected way in which attending Renaissance festivals has grown or benefited you as a person?
The people we meet.
Yeah, the people we meet, just the friendships we've made, the family that we have. Yeah. I think for me, it's knowing that I have a support system that's there for me, but not intertwined in my day-to-day life. It's a support system I can draw on with a whole different energy than I have with the support systems I have in my day-to-day life. that's nice to know, because sometimes the day-to-day support systems can be overwhelming rather than supportive. And this alternate support system is nice to have. I've seen for Bob, he probably doesn't recognize it, but it's drawn him out of his shell somewhat.
Yeah, because I don't generally do characters or anything like that. And so
could have fooled me.
Yeah. I'm just a character.
Yeah.
And it's to me, it's also very interesting that the people we see at fair, we really only see a short time every year.
Yeah.
And so,
some of them.
And, we get back there and we see people we haven't seen in a whole year, but it's like a week later,
Right. Oh yeah. Yeah.
So that's a lot of fun too.
That's definitely been something that's been consistent with everyone who I've talked with so far on the podcast. And something that I really anticipate being there and being very present is that, like you mentioned, that family, that even though you go potentially a year between seeing these people, it's almost like just yesterday. And you have that and that support system. And that's such a huge thing. And the whole welcoming aspect, that no matter what you look like, what you dress like, what you sound like, anything, you're welcome there.
Yeah.
It's such an open and inviting. Everyone is just so open, inviting, and so real. Even though we are playing parts, people are the realists, and the day-to-day mundane hindrances to friendships don't happen through I don't know how many elections, through the whole pandemic, through all of those things that were hot button trigger things for friendships that ended some friendships. That hasn't happened with fair. We have a way of just saying, you know what, we have this shared love. We're not going to let it be ruined by stuff that is happening inside, outside our fantasy world.
Yeah. I think sometimes those kinds of events potentially can have a bad rap of being an escape for people. But considering a lot of the heavy stuff that's happening and been happening in our world, and not just in this country, but literally around the world, it's an authentic place to be present with people who share, like you said, share a love of this Renaissance festival space. And we know that when we walk through those gates, that those things in the outside world, we need that reprieve. We need that time away.
Oh, absolutely. There have been years where we've been dealing with stuff that was so heavy, and fair is quite possibly what saved us. During the huge economic downturn in the 2010s, there was a point where Bob and I were both unemployed and money was tight, and we would scrimp together everything we could to get tickets because we needed to be at fair and just get away from all the junk that was happening in our real life. I joke about how I like to dress noble because I'm so broke in my real life. I'm rich.
Right. Yeah. I can relate, because portraying King Francois I, it's like people come to me and I'm like, you realize this is only a role, right? I'm not really a king. And it's so funny because I guess almost 2 weeks ago now, I went on a date with someone and we were at the St. Charles Christmas traditions. And I knew a couple people that are involved with that. And one of the individuals who I'm pretty sure Bill Blanky, was portraying the ghost of Jacob Marley. And it was so funny. I walk up with Cammie and we walk up and introduce, and the first thing out of his mouth was like, "Hey, Your Majesty." And I'm just like, come on, we're not. But again, it's that kind of a dynamic that you can have with all of those different people.
Yeah.
You share that, and you can go anywhere and you have that connection. It's such a neat thing.
And sometimes it comes up as like a surprise. We were down in Scarborough and we ran into people that we knew.
Oh yeah, we ran into people from a different fair that we knew. Like, oh my gosh!
Yep. Yeah.
I got recognized as the rum fairy at Mardi Gras and I wasn't even dressed up.
Oh my gosh.
Fangirl too.
I recognized my voice, and I also had a musical plates backpack on. Some girl walks up and says, "Excuse me, are you the rum fairy?"
Nice.
I'm incognito.
Yes, yeah. That's brilliant.
Pretty funny. I was like, oh my gosh.
Yes. So speaking of the memories that we've experienced outside fair,
right.
And having been going to Renaissance festivals and a variety of Renaissance festivals, I would imagine that you've had your fair share of memorable experiences, whether they were with patrons, cast, other patrons, entertainers, merchants. So what are some of your favorite memories that you would like to share with my listeners and me?
Well, quite possibly the best one is the whole King's Nuts.
Right. Yes. I was thinking to myself, this one's probably going to come up. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
I know the story from my perspective. So that was funny. Shall I tell it?
Absolutely. Go for it.
Okay. Well, every year we've been bringing my nephews to fair since the oldest, who's now a junior in high school, since he was 2. And it's always been a special day that the boys share with Aunt Amy, Uncle Bob, and then my mom and dad. The boys' parents aren't allowed. It's basically a yes day for them.
Yeah.
Yes, you're going to get it. And every year my mom would get a bag of the honey roasted almonds from the booth. That's no longer there now, but they used to be called the King's Nuts. And my mother, being basically me but older, every year would very loudly proclaim in the lanes, "Oh, the King's Nuts are so delicious, so warm. I can't wait to get the King's Nuts in my mouth." And the boys would hear this and it'd go right over their heads. They're too young to catch the double entendre, and my mom is a queen of double entendre. And so one year we just gotten the bag of the nuts, and we're eating them, and mom is 8, 7, and 5 at the time. And here you come with your entourage of ladies. And you stop to talk to us. And, how is your day? Oh, having a good time. You're enjoying yourself. Oh, yeah, it's great. And you ask the boys, what is your favorite part of fair? And the middle nephew, the 7-year-old, steps forward, and in that clear as a bell voice that carries for miles that kids have, and he is going to be he's our actor, very proudly proclaims, "We love your nuts!"
Yeah, I remember.
My mom and I are crying and laughing so hard. That's when I realized my mother had been playing the longest of long games. I turned to her and I said, "You have been setting this up for years, haven't you?"
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's worth every bag I ever bought. So we commend you on keeping a straight face. I don't know how you did it.
Your entourage is falling out. Women were hiding behind their fans.
Fans, and yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's one of my favorite memories, and just kind of like this 7-year-old. I'm like, oh my gosh. Yeah.
How do I answer this?
Yeah.
I just said something along the lines of, I've been told that before, usually by all the patrons.
Yeah, no. Well, because if I remember correctly, I would remember hearing your mom saying it. So it's always, So
anywhere from that end of the fair, you'd hear her mom proclaiming this as she was walking.
Yeah. Well, and what's so funny about it, there are a lot of things that are funny about it, but one of the things that's unique about it too is that I don't think you'd be able to hear that comment or to be able to experience that kind of a humorous memory or have that kind of humorous experience that carries on with you as a memory anywhere else.
Yeah.
It can only happen at a Renaissance festival. No. There are things that potentially are expressed at Renaissance festivals that might have you thrown out of other places. Not that it's, just because of the, oh my gosh.
I had one time, it's a dog toy. It's a beaver dog toy. You're like, oh, it gets worse.
Yeah, tell him while he's drinking.
I had it on my belt by one of those retractable lanyard things you use for ID cards. So I could hold that, but then I wouldn't drop it and leave it somewhere. And I had the rose vendor spritz it with rose-scented oil or whatever they use on the wooden roses. And so my beaver smelled very nice. It smelled like roses. And at one point, my dad holds it out to some total strangers, like, here, smell my daughter's beaver. I was like, wow, things you never expect to hear for $100.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I may have to put the rated PG-13 version on this episode.
I
know. It was it was a toy, and they were almonds in a paper bag. Yeah. So
the double entendre is
and it's all over the Renaissance fairs. I mean,
awesome.
Oh my gosh, it's one of the things that's often said at like the King Sing or the Queen Sing or whoever's end of the day thing, that a lot of the jokes that are told, and if it goes over their head, but do you really want your kids telling or sharing these jokes? Because they may not understand what they're implying.
Yeah.
And they could be the completely on the surface cleanest kind of thing, but with that double entendre. And there's so much of the music that's that way too. I mean, even the period Renaissance music, there's a lot of that as well. In your case, really as patrons, because you do attend, you are dressed up, you do the garb. What is one of your favorite things about attending Renaissance festivals?
Aside from sharing it with our family, for me, it's seeing people that have never been to a fair for the first time experience it, both children and adults. Mm-hmm. There's that wide-eyed wonder that kids have. But when I see adults drop their inhibitions and play like they're kids again at the fair, they put on a piece of garb or they get a fake sword and suddenly they're a knight and they're adults start imagining again. And so many adults don't use their imagination. And to see that happen at fair, it's worth the price of admission. Absolutely.
Yeah. And for me, it's a kind of a being a kid again thing, putting on a costume and playing.
Yeah.
So I don't have any responsibilities. I'm not in charge of nothing.
Right. Well, and I would say then too, that's most likely something that then motivates you to keep going from year to year.
Oh,
is that opportunity to play.
And there's enough variety. There's enough change every year that it doesn't get old hat. There's different stuff going on.
And there's a sense of familiarity too.
There is.
You see certain things and people, and that's that sense of familiarity.
Mm-hmm.
I joke that Central Missouri Fair, for those of us here in the Midwest, or at least in Missouri, the fair in the spring is kind of like homecoming. We haven't seen each other all winter. It's usually the first fair we go to. And so it's kind of like homecoming. And then in October, it's kind of like prom. The last fair we're all going to see each other at, and we just kind of let loose and, everybody has a good time. But yeah, there's just that sense there's always a sense of coming home.
Yeah.
I think when you finally walk through the gates again for the first time.
Yeah.
It's like I've been away for a long time and I'm home. Even if things have changed, when they're different. I know St. Louis has gone through a lot of changes in the last few years, but there's still that sense of coming home.
Yeah.
Right.
And that motivates me to keep coming.
I would imagine with everything that's going on in the world and in the past few years with the pandemic and everything else, that people were longing for something that was familiar, a place that things were familiar, that things were home. That's a recurring thing too, is that coming home. And if you have a home Renaissance festival, and if you happen to go to ones where some of the performers, the merchants, you potentially know some of the cast, that sense of belonging, that sense of home, but that sense of familiarity. And it's
security too. It's a sense of I can let my guard down here. I can I can stop. It's funny that we take on characters sometimes and pretend, but we can stop pretending when we're afraid.
Right.
Pretend. We don't have to pretend so hard.
Right.
If that makes sense.
Yeah. It's really quite amazing what happens when you put on those costumes, when you put on that garb, that it can transport you and transform you in a lot of ways too. There are some who do literally put on masks of some kind, depending on what kind of character or what they choose to wear when they go to Renaissance festivals. But it's an opportunity to do that. And anybody is welcome, from science fiction to anime to video games.
Make up your own.
Come as a ninja.
Yeah. Or I don't know what, like an orange safety cone.
Yeah,
there you go.
Yeah. The safety garb was awesome.
Yes, it was. Renaissance era garb,
I was
but
trying to
safety
think
garb.
instead of MoDOT, what would it be? It would be Hold dot.
Hold on. Yeah.
Hold dot. Particularly on Department of Transportation.
Yeah.
When we wore that to Kansas City, and I didn't even think of it, that it was Labor Day weekend when we went, in which I was like, oh, that's awesome. I can't believe I didn't even make that connection until we were already there. But we helped direct the parade. At one point,
Oh, brilliant.
I stopped traffic coming through the lane when they were making a parade.
I waved him around the corner.
Yeah, it was great.
Outstanding. Oh my gosh. So as we near close of this conversation, is there anything else that you would want to tell the listeners but haven't had a chance to?
I would say for anybody that has been thinking of coming to a fair, we tell people all the time, just do it.
Yeah.
Just go. Drive. And
don't overthink it. Don't worry about, oh, well, should I do this shit? Just come down.
Just do it.
Come down in mundane street clothes, walk around and experience it.
Yeah.
And then go from there. You know?
Or I tell people, if you think you might want to dress some garb, do it. Do it. Drop your inhibitions and your preconceived notions at the gate. Come in just open to experiencing and fully experience it. Allow yourself to fully experience it. Don't think, people are going to think I'm acting like a kid. Act like a kid.
Yeah.
Enjoy yourself. You know what? If you want to eat the chocolate-covered strawberries, eat the chocolate-covered strawberries. You know.
Yeah.
You want to ride the pony? Well, you might be too big, but see if you can ride the pony.
Yeah.
You know?
But yeah, just do the things.
Yeah.
Check it out.
Get up on the giant hobby horse and do it. Whatever, have fun. There's really no way not to just experience it. Allow yourself to fully experience it and
don't miss out on the ale.
Brilliant.
Hydrate. Definitely hydrate.
Right. Water and salt.
Bring the kids. It's still a kid-worthy environment.
Or don't feel like you have to have the kids with you.
Yeah. Or come by an adult kid day.
Well, we tell people, try to garb if you can, because it's a whole different world when you garb up. It's a totally different world. Don't worry about whether you think it's authentic or what should I wear? Wear whatever. I don't know. Put on a T-shirt that says, that looks like I drew a T-shirt one time for somebody that looked like a bodice because she's like, I'm like, here, you'll start this way, and she got a lot of compliments on it too. Yeah. So
nice. And I think that's where the performers, the merchants, the cast, other patrons, that welcoming dynamic is they see that and it's acknowledging, sure, people, maybe they went to Party City or whatever kind of Halloween place to pick up a costume that's what, $10-20, whatever.
They're trying.
But they're trying and they want to have that kind of an experience just to play. And why not? It's an opportunity for the cast, performers, merchants to engage with every person who's walking through those gates. When someone's in garb, and it's not that you're not welcomed if you're not, but you have this.
I'm ready to play.
Yeah. And so in doing that, by dressing up, it's just that much more potentially enjoyable because you're like, you know what? I'm going to put this on. And I love that you said, just do it. Yeah. Just go. Don't overthink it. I mean, perfect.
Yeah.
The cheap flower crown or the wooden sword is almost like the adult Renaissance version of the buddy bench. It's saying, hey, I'm ready to make friends.
Mm-hmm.
Come play with me. And we will. We usually will. Most people we've met have been just people we started randomly talking to at fair because they were mundanes, and then the next year here they are all decked out. They're like, yeah, we couldn't wait to get stuff.
Oh yeah, and I've met people who they add on year to year. Like they start with a base and build from there, and it's amazing to watch the progression from one year to the next, or even over a course of a festival run.
Yeah.
That you have people one day, like you say, they show up in their mundanes, and then the next day or the next weekend, they're decked out, or they've begun the process. And it really is. It's just really only something that can happen at a Renaissance festival.
I look at the first garb we had, and then where we're at now, and oh my gosh, thank goodness I learned better sewing. Found better hair.
Be careful of your footwear.
Yes, that's the other thing we would tell people. Get quality footwear.
Oh, yes.
You want to be on your feet. It's not all paved.
Yeah, do not scrimp on the footwear. Scrimp and save everywhere else. But
8-inch heels are not going to work out. Platforms are not going to work out no matter how you do it. And for our second year, suede boots. Suede soles.
Suede moccasins.
Just about crippled my feet.
Well, that made Kansas City, and so they became basically, slicker and snot on the bottom.
Yeah.
So we slid all over the place. We felt every rock,
every chip of wood.
Yeah. Footwear is.
We were camping out, and we woke up, and it was raining. And we're like, dang it! And so we stopped at Walmart, got 6 yards of rubber-backed burlap. I had them cut it into 3 sections, probably got a bag of about 1,000 safety pins, and we safety pinned this stuff around us like cloaks. We were probably the most authentic looking peasants. The mud on us and those cloaks that we had on. I mean, people that kept asking us, do you have your performers discount? We're like, we're not performers. We're your fun.
Yeah.
I know it's pouring down rain outside, but whatever, man.
Nice.
Although some of the best times have been the rainy times. They're hilariously.
All the mud angels.
All the mud
at the joust. There was a particular weekend, and I have this on video somewhere, where it was just too muddy to joust. And then they tried jousting on the shoulders of their squires, and that didn't really work out either.
It was going great until one of the jousters stepped out of his boots and then stepped into the mud. And at this point, he can't put the boot back on because he's got a muddy shoe.
It degraded from there. And one of the jousters just fell on his back and made a mud angel. They
were scooping mud up with their helms. It was so the best. It was hilarious. We ended up giving them the video on 2 mini CDs. I think you guys want this.
There's not many other places you can go that would move in that direction.
When things go wrong, they look better.
Yeah, and Renaissance festivals are rain or shine events. So you did actually answer my final question as far as what's the best piece of advice, and so just do it. Hey, that sounds like a great logo.
I know.
Sounds like a great lingo. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, go as thou.
Go as thou. Yes. Yes. Verily go as thou. Yeah. Just do it verily.
What did we do with an E at the end of it? DOE.
Yeah.
ITE.
Thank you both, Amy and Bob, so much for taking this time out of your day and even being away from home, being at family, to chat with me. And do want to say, may your day as well as your new year be filled with Renaissance merriment and many blessings to you in the new year.
Same to you. Huzzah.
Thank you very much. Yes, huzzah.
Looking forward to seeing you in the fall.
Absolutely.
I do hope you enjoyed this episode with my guests, Amy Maxwell and Robert Palmer. They are a real joy. Be on the lookout for the next installment to be released on Friday, July 28th, where I bring you my conversation with Kathleen Whalen, a longtime friend and cast member of the St. Louis Renaissance Festival, as well as the Oklahoma Renaissance Festival. If you are a performer, merchant, staff, or diehard patron in or of the Renaissance Festival world, and would like to be featured on Coffee Talk with King Francois I, reach out to me by way of clicking on the following link provided in the show notes: www.theodorejander.com/Coffee Talk Podcast. Would you like to receive early access every other week to each new episode, as well as receive a behind-the-scenes glimpse into the production and creative process for the podcast? If so, join the wonderful community of listeners supporting the show and making new things possible through Patreon. Learn more at www.patreon.com/Coffee Talk with King Francois. The link will be provided in the show notes. Thank you so much for tuning in to Coffee Talk with King Francois I. A bientôt. See you soon. Ciao for now and au revoir.